biggest thing for me was realizing what internal boundaries are. So boundaries, not physically, not physical boundaries. I think that's more clear, but internal boundaries. So what are internal boundaries? So more so of not what you tell people you are or are not going to expect of them, or not putting rules for people, but setting those rules up for yourself.
Welcome to the We Ain't Normal podcast, where each week we share the best tools to help neurodiverse moms navigate life so you can enjoy more flow, focus, and freedom to live your best life yet. And now, here's your host, Charmaine Fuller.
Are you feeling buried under a list of things to do that seem to have no end in sight? Do you feel like if you slow down or stop, things will fall apart? Are you feeling like you're consistently missing the mark or dropping the ball in the most important areas of your life? Well, that's why the Simplify My Schedule workshop was created. Simplify My Schedule is designed to help you uncover the secret to creating a schedule that keeps you focused and in flow. Simply. To learn more, go to thecharmedlife.me/workshop and sign up for the next workshop session. I'll see you there. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to this episode of the We Ain't Normal show. I am Charmaine Fuller, and today I am here with Faten. Now, Faten I met at a networking event, and I'm like, oh my God, I love her energy. And then I went to your Instagram page, and I'm like, I've got to have her on the podcast, because everything that you talk about with the boundaries and the generational traumas and all of that deep, diggy, dirty stuff that we like to avoid because we just want to be healed.
Exactly. That's what it is.
That's what she talks about. And so if you could introduce yourself, let us know who you are and all that good stuff.
I would love to. So I'm Faten, and as Charmaine introduced me, no worries, girl. I am a social worker, and I have worked with women and teens. I love empowering women. I have a platform dedicated to educating, advocating, and empowering women. And I'm a mom of 3. I'm a proud wife. I did a little bit of stay-at-home momming, and then, had to find my way back out. So here we are.
So this season's theme is about motivation. And I don't know if women are aware that your motivation is tied into your boundaries. The whole point of this season is to show how your motivation, your inspiration to live, do, breathe, be in life is due to a number of factors. It's not just a checklist or some affirmations, but you talk a lot about boundaries. And I love boundaries because you just don't talk about setting them. You actually talk about putting those puppies into action, right?
Everything, right? Exactly. That's exactly what it is. A lot of times when we hear the word boundaries, and I know that's the buzzword, on social media, a lot of times it's just thrown out there. There's no real explanation. We don't really know how to navigate them, how to set them, how to deal with those sticky situations, that come up. And I just wanted to really make it raw, throw it out there, and really help people navigate what true meaning of boundaries is.
Well, give it to us. What is the true meaning of boundaries, and how can we set them?
All right, that's where we're going to start then. One of the biggest things on my healing journey, and I'm so glad we're talking about this, was setting boundaries. And I think I had a misconstrued idea of what boundaries were, and I think that's why it was so hard to navigate them. When I first started healing, I quickly realized that there were expectations, limitations, there were things I had to put in place to help me heal, So I went ahead and started, whether it was unfortunately cutting people off that no longer served me, or really working on my relationships and helping them be even healthier. And that's really where boundary setting comes in. I think the biggest thing for me was realizing what internal boundaries are. So
Oh,
boundaries, not physically, not physical boundaries. I think that's more clear, but internal boundaries. So what are internal boundaries? I think this is
yeah.
where this is where, it gets interesting. So more so of not what you tell people you are or are not going to expect of them, or not putting rules for people, but setting those rules up for yourself.
Oh,
Mm,
so like that's the sticky part because
that's the
yeah,
sticky part.
because now we have to be accountable to us and not
Exactly.
just go, I want you to do this for me. I now have to
That's
do it for
it.
me as well. So
Exactly.
is that why you think a lot of women's boundaries don't work? I know for me that was one of the things because my family was like,
Yes.
you're not doing it, so why should
That's
we do it?
exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. A lot of times we set up all these rules and regulations, and you're not allowed to talk to me this way, and you're not allowed to do this. But then internally, what's happening there, And then when those boundaries are broken that we set out, because, people are not going to just follow your boundaries, right? Then it's even a stickier situation because then you're full of resentment and anger. And then what are your boundaries really doing for you at that point? They're not really
Whoa.
helping you heal or feel healthy at that. So this is where the internal boundaries really, really helps. And I think you said it. This is why women have trouble with really following through with their boundaries, because it's like, well, no one follows them. So what now? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, that was the thing with when I would set boundaries and even when I saw in some of my clients,
Mm-hmm.
they would set these boundaries and they would be beautiful and they would
Mm-hmm.
have this talk with their family
Yes.
and then they would go, how come nobody's like everybody's back to where they were? And when you dig,
Yes.
it's like, well, you weren't applying. Like you told them what it was, they busted the boundary, and then you're
Exactly.
like, well, maybe next time they'll be better, or maybe next time they'll understand. And then
That's exactly what it
you're
is.
expecting people to read your mind and know when they busted it.
That's a huge thing. The mind reading, the mind reading in relationships. And there's several steps to setting up boundaries. The first step is you have to execute them. First, I would say you have to define them. What are your internal boundaries? You know what I mean? Once you have an idea of what your boundaries are, you need to execute them. And after you execute them and you get into those sticky situations, now you have to follow through. You have to follow through. There's got to be consequences. There's got to be some sort of consequence that does not enable people to treat you the way you do not want to be treated. And I think
Exactly.
that's where a lot of people kind of fall off the wagon, because it's really hard and it is not easy. And I say this in all my posts, is that no, this is not comfortable. This is very
No.
uncomfortable. This is hard work.
Yes.
And I think
And
that's another thing. It's the uncomfort. I think that's where people are just like, oh wait, I'm just gonna walk away from this. Like, this is too difficult.
or it's easier for me to just do it myself. Like when it comes to boundaries
Exactly.
of getting other people to help you or to step up, it's
Absolutely.
easier for me to do it myself than to have them help me or for me to have to keep repeating myself to them.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. I think one of the biggest stories I say is when I just stopped doing it. I just stopped. I just stopped doing everything for everyone. And then everyone's lost. Like, wait,
Yeah.
you were taking care of all these responsibilities. What happened? And I'll tell you, it was chaotic. Like, it was not fun. It was not fun. It wasn't easy to deal with because you are used to a certain standard. And when you don't do them, you're going to have
Yeah,
to be
cause.
patient. You're going to have to wait out on your partner or your kids or
Yep.
someone to help you. And sometimes that's not easy. The waiting part is not
So not
easy.
easy. But the thing with doing that, I call it the going on strike method. is
That's
that
exactly what it is.
in order for it to be effective, you still have to communicate. You
That's
still have
exactly.
to make your needs known. You just can't
Exactly.
say, I'm sick of this shit, and then just walk off. Feeling like life is going so fast that if you slowed down, it would all fall apart. If you always feel like you're going somewhere but never getting anywhere good, the Simplify My Schedule workshop is just what you need to get life back in flow. To learn more, go to thecharmedlife.me/workshop to sign up for the next workshop session. I'll see you there. Now, back to our show.
That's exactly
and then not have
it.
a conversation.
Yes, yes.
And I think that's where, I think that's where a lot of women get it twisted, is that they think, okay, I just stop doing anything. I just run away for the weekend. And when I
No.
come home, everything's supposed to be magically done. It's like, no, babe, you still have to have the conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's where the discomfort comes in. I think a lot of people would rather avoid a difficult conversation than to have the difficult conversation and then see the results, reap the rewards, But that's where they're just like, no, I'm not going to do it,
Exactly. And then thinking that 10 to 15 years of mess that was created is going to be
Exactly.
solved in a weekend.
That's
And
exactly it.
that's been the entire theme of this particular season, is that everything you're being given is not a life hack.
Exactly.
So sorry, this is not the show for that. But it's a way for you to radically change how your life is created if you're willing to take the deep dive in and do the work.
Absolutely.
And that's just what it is. It's being willing to do the work. How do you keep, because boundaries are so fluid, how do you keep yours intact? How do you help others keep theirs intact? What are some of the things that you do to make sure that your boundaries are still in a space that is good for you?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, the healing aspect included, healing and boundary setting. So part of setting my own boundaries is really just taking care of myself, meeting my own needs. I got to do the self-care. I got to do the work for myself, with myself, and sit with myself, and before I can set limits for other people. I gotta be present in my own life. I have to be willing to do that work for myself, and navigating relationships is not easy, but navigating relationships while you're broken and unable to really know your needs or meet them is just a recipe for disaster.
And how that affects how you feel to even be engaged with your life, with your family, with your career. When you don't have those in place and you try to, like, why don't I feel like dealing with my kids? Why don't I feel like dealing with my husband? Why don't I feel like, it's like, because you have, for me, and this is just me speaking personally, there was a space of resentment there because I hadn't spoken up. So no, I don't want to spend time with you, honey, because you really just ticking me off right now. But he doesn't know he's ticking me off.
He doesn't
has
know.
no clue that he has ticked me off.
Well, you said a very important word, and I think a lot of our emotions stem from resentment. Resentment is an emotion, but I think even if you look deeper, you'll find that there's some unsolved emotions that you may need to process, you might need to communicate, and you need to work through. One of the most empowering things I've done, a strategy that I used, is make a list of every boundary I want set, and when that boundary is broken, what feeling arises for me. So instead of just saying I'm resentful, what does that really mean? Let's break it down. So I'll give you a quick example. When your spouse does not help you with the chores at home, when he doesn't put his fair share in, how does that really make you feel? It made me feel at least unappreciated.
Yep.
It was frustrating. It was more than just resentment. Like, I had to dig deeper. Like, how does this really feel right now? And there was a whole bunch of emotions behind just resentment, right?
Exactly.
And then it's like, okay, well, I have to communicate that now. I have to let him know that when you don't put your fair share in this house, I feel unappreciated. I feel frustrated. This is why I look a certain way and you're not getting it. But we can't expect them to mind read either, you know? So
Right.
like they're not gonna know that. The people in your life are not gonna know how you feel unless you actually tell them. And that's one of the biggest things. I think that's why there's a lot of frustration in relationships. And you know, that's why a lot of relationships are difficult, because we're not being honest. We're not being
Yeah.
fully upfront and direct. And I think that's very important.
You know, what I've noticed is that your people want to help you and love on you more than you would ever know. But that piece
Absolutely.
about communicating exactly what it is that
Yes.
you need for them to support you is what makes it juicy.
Yeah.
And that first step you said is being clear. Get a notebook, sit
Exactly.
down. I have clients start with, okay, because when you normally if you ask a woman, what do
Mhm.
you want, that has never really thought about it, she has
Yes.
no clue, but she can tell
Exactly.
you everything that she doesn't want. So I say,
Exactly.
let's start with that, and then,
Work backwards. Yeah.
reverse engineer, work backwards.
Right,
And
right.
then they start getting to that place. But you have to get clear first before you start just spouting off at people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know that self clarity, that it all goes back to being aware.
Aware.
We have to be aware. We have to, and this is why when we talk about healing, it is so complicated, it's so multifaceted, because there are so many different things involved. You know, we could talk about boundary setting, but again, behind the boundary setting is getting to know yourself.
Yep.
And a lot of us lose that. You know, we lose that through being a mom, being a daughter, being a wife. We're all in
Yep.
these different roles, but when do we really have time to just really sit down and be true and real with ourselves and really get to know ourselves?
That's a practice,
Absolutely.
especially after having kids. I was
Yes.
thinking, I
Yes.
was like, before kids, I was traveling,
Yeah.
my husband and I, we did all this stuff. Like I had my thing.
Yeah.
Then something about kids
Yes.
switches that, because now it really goes from being just about you, or even just
Mhm.
about you and your husband, to these little people that cannot take
Yes.
care of themselves. They need you for
Exactly.
everything. And so that then becomes another identity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it almost overtakes your entire
Yes.
identity, right? And
Yes.
then once they get a little older, you have to refine yourself. And in the meantime, you've changed, right? So you don't
Yes.
even go back to who you were before being a mom. That's not realistic, you know?
Right.
You have to kind of find who you are now after becoming the mom, after going through all this huge journey experiences. I mean, who are you now? So you lose a little bit, you win a little bit, you gain a little, and then you kind of just got to find it all
That
back,
space
put
and
it
that
the
little
pieces back together again.
it's this whole journey is so worth it.
Yes,
This
absolutely.
whole piece of being in a consistent or a constant space of
Mhm.
rediscovery
Mhm.
and re just rediscovery, right? Because
Yes, yes.
once you're clear on one boundary, like you said, somebody can get older, somebody could get a new
Right.
job, and
Right.
that can shift on the expectations, and the
Exactly.
needs could definitely shift. So I would say making sure those boundaries are fluid. It's not meant
Yes.
to be a wall. It's
Exactly.
actually meant to be a support piece
That's
for your
exactly
life.
where what it is. And you know, I have read that before, and I think it really rings true, is that if you are setting up a wall, that means your boundaries are not working for you. It's not
Yeah.
they're not made to set up walls. They're made to bring down that wall and communicate in a healthy manner and help you, you know? If they're not working for you, you got to kind of play around with it.
And it's a constant thing of playing around with it.
Yes.
Because even when you get it, then life changes.
That's what it is. That's what it is. And that's why I talk so much about healing not being linear, because we're not just going to stop growing at any point. There's no end point. Like there's no, you know, point where it's like, okay, thank you, I'm done healing, I'm going to go now. Like that's not going to happen. It's
Right.
going to continue. It's going to be filled with ups and downs, and kind of just learning to navigate as you go, right?
What are some of the daily practices that you have for yourself to just take care of you?
Such a huge thing. I think when I actually discovered I need to take care of me,
Oh,
even just realizing that, right, is like an
yes.
epiphany. Like, wait, I deserve a moment alone. And I think getting rid of that guilt, putting the guilt aside, and working it into my schedule, just making it, like you said, a daily habit. Um, my biggest thing, I think the number one thing that I did and do is just be outside and take my time for my walks. That is such an important thing to me, to connect with nature, to be active, um, be outdoors, get some sunshine. I mean, really, it does wonders for you. And I know some of these things are so simple. That's the funny part, is that
Yeah.
when you speak and you're like, wait, do you spend time outside? Do you meditate? Do you journal? And it's like, wait, like, that's all? And I'm like, yes, no, really, that's all. you know, and that's really what it is. We have to find our joy again. We have to get back intact with what brings us our peace, our happiness, our joy. And when you start doing those things and spending time alone, I think prioritizing relationships, I think going out for coffee with a friend is so underestimated.
Isn't it though? Without kids.
That's exactly what it is, though. You're not dragging the kids along, you know? So, of course, it's a self-care practice. Um, you're reconnecting with maybe a childhood friends. Like, that's so nostalgic, you know? It brings me happiness. So that's definitely was a huge thing. And journaling. I think
Yes.
journaling was so big. Just, whether it's a gratitude journaling, just identifying the things that I'm thankful for, that I appreciate, and really picking things up. I'm not like, gratitude is hard on days when you're pissed off, right? Because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, I don't know, nothing's going good. But that's what it is, finding the good amongst everything, all the struggles that you're going through. And sometimes it's just like, you know what? Well, I'm thankful to be alive right now. And that's okay. Like, talk
Yes.
about that, you know?
So yeah, I switched. So the days where I'm having a really rough day or it's just like
Mhm.
a crappy day,
Mhm.
versus me finding things to be grateful for, I say, what did I see today that was beautiful or really
Exactly.
pretty?
Exactly.
And so then I start thinking about, maybe I took a drive and the trees were
Yes.
like, I start thinking about those things that I just thought were maybe pretty, you
Exactly.
know?
Exactly. You just reminded me of another self-care quote unquote thing. I mean, even like savoring those images or just pulling them up. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, like sunsets make me happy. I just want to see a picture of a sunset. Like I don't even have to observe it right now in real life. Just show me a picture. And it kind of just elicits that, you know what? That feel good hormones. Like, okay,
Yes.
I'm feeling better now, and like you said, really searching for the good, like searching for the
'Cause
beauty.
some days you have to,
You
girl.
have to, right? It's like that sometimes, yes.
So we're already at like
Really?
time, and it's like, wait a
Wow.
minute, but I have more. Wait, wait.
I feel like we just got here, right?
I
There's so
know
much more to talk about.
when it comes to this topic specifically,
Yes.
um, it's so important and the part of the journey of who we are as women, who we are as moms, who we are as just human beings.
Mhm.
And so many of the things you said, like you said, they're really simple.
Yes, yes.
It's putting them into practice
Exactly.
is
Be
the part.
consistent.
Yep, and being consistent is what normally gets us. And
Yes.
being consistent to me doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily mean that I do it every day.
That's exactly, it's forgiving yourself also when
Yes.
you don't, you know? That's
It's not
also, it's all part of it. It's all part of the
all part of it.
process.
It's not doing a perfect 30 days, but
Exactly.
it's being intentional and present when I am doing
Absolutely.
it. And I think
Absolutely.
that matters more than just me writing in my gratitude journal because it's something to check off of my to-do list. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so yeah, this is
It was wonderful.
I know.
I like this connection. And I think it's such an important topic. Like, I'm so passionate about this.
And there's so many different ways that we can definitely, like, we could just go with this. But yeah,
We'll have to do it again then.
we will. So this is about setting boundaries, but it's not really about setting boundaries.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Maybe we started on the surface and now we're going to dig deeper, you know?
You know, it's about like you said, the steps to setting those boundaries. It's about the clarity and the awareness of it all. And that's
Absolutely.
the part that everybody wants to skip,
Exactly.
which is why
Exactly.
setting boundaries sounds so sexy, right? It's like, oh
Right.
yeah, I'm going to set some boundaries.
And it's not. It's the
It's not.
farthest away from that. It gets real ugly before it gets pretty, but that's okay. You know, we got to talk about both.
And each time you do it, it gets easier
Yes.
and easier, and you
Yes.
can do it faster, and you can turn it over
That's
faster. So
exactly.
that's why I say this
Yeah.
is not a life hack,
Right.
because for many of us, there's a lot of underbelly work that needs to be done first.
That's
And get
exactly
yourself a
what it is.
coach, get a therapist,
Yes.
get
Yes.
a whatever you need to get in that
Invest in
space.
Invest in
Absolutely.
yourself.
This is a space of this is self-care, right?
That's exactly
For
what
you.
it is. Absolutely.
Faten, where can they find you on these social media streets?
I am on Instagram and TikTok, authentically at peace. And I would love for women to join my community. I hope to spread awareness. I hope to make a community, connect with people. I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful for being here. And I thank you so much for this opportunity.
I am so grateful that we connected and we were like standing in the same weird place at the same time.
It was a weird place. I can confirm that part at least. I'm so thankful. Thank you so much.
All of Faten's social media details will be in the show notes below or on the side, wherever you're listening to this at. Make sure you connect with her. Make sure you get into her community. Make sure you follow her on social media. My goodness, her posts on Instagram are the truth.
Thank you. Thank you.
They are the truth. I'm like, yes, every time.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Remember to rate, subscribe, and share with another sister friend. And until next time, stay weird. Thanks for listening to the We Ain't Normal show. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe so that other neurodiverse moms can feel seen, heard, and supported in their journey. Until next time, remember, stay weird. And I'll see you on the next episode. Coming up next time on the We Ain't Normal show is giving yourself grace and not being afraid to try things on, make some missteps, not get it all the way right, giving yourself that grace and space to understand that life is going to happen and that it's not always going to look peachy keen. I know for me, sometimes I think I have clarity about a thing because I'm doing a whole bunch of things. So easy to find yourself locked into doing things. Want more of this episode? Make sure your podcast notifications are on and you're a part of the We Ain't Normal family by going to thecharmedlife.show to get weekly podcast updates and notifications. I'll see you there.